seating does. Hopefully.
You ready?
Ready for it.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, we're up to, any section?
Right, do we want to close the executive session then?
You can close it at the end when you close the cap.
Yeah, and then I will announce the cases.
Okay, then.
Okay, first up, Mayor, is a presentation by Aaron Abling from Suburban Engineering for bond ordinance concerning the Green Street CSO project.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk today about soon to be out to bid, contract soon to be out to bid, contract soon to be out to bid, 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 drainage area that's being separated. The stormwater is being diverted to the river and away from the combined sewer infrastructure. Going to the next slide. So we selected that area we call the Clay Street drainage area. It was upper drainage area within the Court Street. And that was to alleviate some of the water that was coming downstream into this lower lying area, Green Street area. So two purposes. Of course, there was flooding up by between Railroad and First, between Passaic and Central, that area. The current project's addressing that. But really our biggest problem is the lowest elevation in the city, and that's near Green Street, South Newman, Lodi, where you see on this map blown up a little bit, that red area. So the project that's underway right now is taking a substantial drainage area away from this area. And then the project I'm going to talk about today is kind of completing this effort. So in your long-term control plan, there was a Court Street stormwater project identified. And that project was really your implementation of your percent capture that was required. In working with the city and in working with FEMA, we were able to look at these areas down here and find a way to address the inland flooding and the long-term control plan with a substantial grant. So just a little bit more detail before we get off this sheet. There's two main areas of concern I want to talk about and I thought was important for an update. I'll start with South Newman area. I'll start with South Newman, the area west of the NJ Transit Rail, shown in red, is not part of the bond ordinance that, as of right now, that we're speaking about today. That area is upstream of a Meadowlands Rebuild by Design project. If anyone's heard about what they're doing downstream, many tide gates, pump stations, channel improvements, and the South Newman area is the uppermost drainage area that will be impacted by that project. A little bit more to talk about there, but I want to talk about the second area, which is the Green Street area. Of course, these are the names I use. Really what it's shown is the area on this map in red that's east of the transit rail, so Green Street, Lodi, all the way to State Street. We see flooding there frequently. And this is where we're really focusing our effort on this hazard mitigation grant. The first phase we're going to go through, and we actually have a project out to bid right now to start this. It's a CCTV contract that's out to bid, is to make sure that there's no interconnections between the South Newman Green Street area that we're unsure of, right? Where's all this water coming from? Making sure we identify that, making sure that South Newman's being addressed by the Rebuild by Design, and making sure that our grant project, the hazard mitigation grant, is taking care of the rest. So with that, I would like to flip to the next screen. Good, Frank, thank you. Again, hopefully you can see here in green, that's that first area I showed you that's under construction or already has been constructed so far. So that's what we call the Clay Street project. Just area-wise, I wanted you to be able to see it and compare it to what we're doing in red. In red is the area being considered for sewer separation as part of this bond ordinance. This red area goes up to near the high school, if you would, Railroad Ave, up to First Street, and if you look to the south, it goes all the way even a little beyond the city limits, because we do have some infrastructure that ties. There's a leg that goes out to the river, just to give you some main key points here. That's Kansas Street. It's a nice wide open right-of-way. That's the identified area for a large culvert to go through, and then it will go to the river with a pump station. So planning for future elevation changes, and honestly accommodating today. Green Street's down to elevation 5.6, and our 100-year flood of the Hackensack River is at elevation 8, right? So we need a way to drain this infrastructure. There will be a pump station at the river. The biggest part of what I wanted to convey today is with that red area, how are we going about this, right? It's a substantial project. There's a substantial bond being introduced today. I wanted to talk a little bit about how that's broken down. So the first thing is making sure I reiterate that this is part of a FEMA hazard mitigation grant. The application has been made and accepted, so you make a preliminary application, the state and FEMA then take it to the next level and say pretty much this project's accepted, we want a formal application. We've made that formal application, that's been submitted. We're currently waiting for any comments that FEMA might have that we could address, but we've gone through that process. we've been accepted for a $32 million grant. So the bond ordinance you're gonna hear, we're expecting $40 million for the construction costs of this project. Again, the area shown in red is the area to be mitigated, and 32 of that will be a grant from FEMA. So that was really the first step, is getting through that. That's the work we've done to date. The second step is what we have out to bid and what our office is working on, and that's that investigation into the existing system. There's a lot of unknowns, so we're gonna go clean CCTV, which we'll see an immediate benefit from. There's a lot of these pipes, a lot of the infrastructure that's out there that the DPW doesn't have the abilities to clean. They don't have the proper equipment, they don't have the manpower. This sits low, it's always full. So that's what we're going out to bid for now. So we'll go through that effort and then we'll be able to map it. We'll be able to see, are there interconnections? Where's this water coming from? Do we have a groundwater issue? We'll be investigating all those things like that. So that's step two. Again, it's out to bid for a contractor right now, and then we'll continue with the mapping. We also have a feasibility ongoing for property acquisition, so that's started. The pump station I mentioned at the river, the city currently does not have a property there large enough to accommodate it, so we're looking at options there. The fourth step is a preliminary design, if you would, for permitting. So for that large red area, we will get land use permits for the entire area. And from there, it will allow us to do what we've done with Clay Street, and that's to separate out individual contracts for design and construction over numerous years. So a lot of what you've seen occur for Clay Street so far is what you're gonna see as part of this project as far as construction goes. But that's the overview I wanted to give you on what's being introduced tonight. I don't know if anyone has questions for me. I know Jim mentioned to me he wanted to say a few things as well. Anything, or can I go to Jim? Good, okay.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I just wanted to talk for a minute about the financing of this project. This is a $40 million bond ordinance that's on for introduction tonight. And the way we're doing this bond ordinance is a departure from every other bond ordinance that we've done in the 9 years that I've been here. But to try and I just want to bring it into perspective for a second. Going back to 2019, back in 2019, we had a goal setting session. And at that session, I had set a financial goal for the city. And that was to come up with a long-term financial plan to address flooding. Flooding was an issue in Hackensack that had been around for a long time. It had been investigated by prior administrations, it had been studied. It was never acted on for one reason, couldn't afford it. Yeah, well, if you know anything about problems, if you don't address them, they don't get better, they tend to get worse, and they also tend to get more expensive. So the trick here was to try and make Hackensack able to afford to be able to do a project like this. Okay? When we went after the Clay Street project, as Aaron explained, we did that financing through the iBank. Using the iBank, there's basically three components of it. The first one is that 3/4 of what we borrow is interest-free. Ended up being huge because interest rates have gone way up in the last 18 months. The second piece was the principal forgiveness. We got up to $17 million in principal forgiveness. This is money that we borrow to pay the contractor and we don't have to pay back. And the third thing was for the sewer separation projects, the iBank will allow us to spread the payments over 40 years. That's important because the improvements are basically, for all intents and purposes, are permanent. So to be able to stretch the payments out over 40 years, that's what makes it affordable. Okay? So with Clay Street pretty much designed, you know, we're still left, we have one bid left, or two bids to go out. We turn our attention to the Green Street area, okay? And how are we gonna make that project affordable, okay? So it's a $40 million project, okay? And it just so happened that, you know, the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program became available at a time when we were ready to apply for it, because we had done all the preliminary studies and everything else. Suburban works closely with the state police, who's administering the grant program. Okay, so we took advantage of it. Okay. The difference in this bond ordinance that we haven't done before is that we're only incurring $8 million in debt for this project. Okay? Normally, every project that we do, whether it has a grant or anything, we incur debt for the full amount. Okay? And the reason that we do that is because going back in the old days, we had cash problems. And we needed to be able to borrow the money to be able to pay the bills associated with it. All right? Well, we've been working on cash problems for a number of years. And we're in a very good position now with our cash. So now we're able to do a bond ordinance that's $40 million, but only has $8 million in debt. Okay, the other $32 million comes from the grant. Okay, it will be difficult to administer because that means that's $32 million that we're going to have to basically front and put in for reimbursement. Front it, put in for reimbursement, and that's going to take a lot of effort. Okay, but truthfully, we're at the point now with our finances that we can do that. Yeah, couldn't say that a bunch of years ago, but we can say that now. Right? But it's a different approach. To be perfectly honest, I'm fairly excited about it. It's just being able to tackle a problem like the Green Street flooding is just. I think it's a real credit to this administration. It's just another example of one of those huge projects or huge problems that people say, oh well, that's just the way it is, and we don't take that approach. Let's tackle it head on and go after it. Okay, that's how we plan to pay for all this. Again, the ordinance is on for introduction tonight with the public hearing and the adoption scheduled for the May 9th meeting. Okay, if you have any questions on the financing, be happy to answer.
Seems good to me, seems basic, good to me. I'll take the 32 million, instigate any day.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jim. And it's true what you say about, and I don't want to blame prior administrations, but really, what you don't see, you don't fix. And sewers, nobody sees, so they let them go and they let them go and they let them go until you have major disasters and catastrophes with some of the storms we've had. And look what we had in over by Clay Street in the Railroad Avenue area. People's basements getting completely filled up with water and losing their furnaces or their hot water heaters, their belongings, possessions. So it's great that we're doing the residential area now. It's great that we're doing an industrial/commercial area, which has been flooding for forever. And it's only getting worse over there, so looking forward to getting the project started. Curious to see what the cameras work's gonna find, what the mapping's done, so thanks. Number two.
Number 2 is a discussion regarding the business owner and rental unit owner insurance registry update, which was a requirement. Basically, it is establishing a fee of $50. Number 3 is a resolution regarding Hackensack University Medical Center Community Service Contribution Agreement. I will let Steve make a comment on that.
About to step off today.
Yeah, maybe just for, you'll just have to. As council is aware, in 2018, we did enter into a community services host agreement with Hackensack University Medical Center to reflect the services that the city provides to HUMC and its facilities, which come at a considerable cost, and also to resolve a number of other open matters. That agreement expires at the end of 2023. As part of the agreement, the parties were to reopen negotiations on a successor agreement to start at the beginning of 2024. And so we have reached an understanding with HUMC to extend this agreement, including the annual contribution of $4 million in addition to other payments for such things as the Second Street air rights, for parking, and for other various arrangements that we've made with HUMC. It's separate and apart for that. This is in addition to certain taxable properties that will continue to be taxed as normal. This just deals with their tax exempt properties. This is, I think, one of the better deals for any hospital in New Jersey. I think Kathy could speak to that more than I could, but certainly goes to the ongoing cooperation and partnership that we've had with the hospital, and the recognition that the city does provide the base of their operations and many public services, and we deserve to be fairly compensated for that. So the agreement's on for tonight for approval. I don't know if there's anything else, any questions anybody has about it, but that's what we're doing.
I'd just like to add that it's a great boost for the city. It's a great revenue source for Jim to offset, $4 million a year. Again, it was for 6 years, first agreement, and we rolled it over for another 6 years. And it just shows the partnership that Hackensack University Medical Center has with the city, and the appreciation and the work that goes both ways. As Steve referenced, they also have taxable properties, and they also pay an additional, close to $5 million a year in taxable properties as well, plus some of the air rights agreements that are in place and some parking agreements. So the city is fortunate to have developed this partnership and this great relationship with the medical center, which again brings a lot of 8,000 or 9,000 employees. So it supplies a huge influx in the job market here to Bergen County. Again, we're fortunate to have a hospital of that magnitude and that level of excellence right here in our back door, so to speak. So in many ways, it's an economic stimulator to the city, not only for folks that are coming here for services, but visitors, etc. So there's many ways that the medical center, again, is a key part of our city. And we appreciate the recognition in this agreement that they give to the city and help us to maintain the support of the hospital. So we have to be very appreciative folks for that.
Kathy, thank you for your job. I know that you were fighting to try to get this agreement through so many.
A lot of my blood, sweat, and tears went into this agreement, I will say that. I got it done.
Billy and Jean, everybody that participated to try to get this agreement.
It was mostly the deputy mayor, that's for sure.
A lot of late nights.
Yes. Number 4, Mary, you can come back up.
Thank you.
Number 4 is concerning the recycling collection change, which will take place on May 1st. What we're doing is every other week. Recycling will take place every week. It's just 1 week will be one type of recycling, the next week will be the other type of recycling. So that's we needed to make that change due to staffing personnel and some other issues. Last but not least is the CSO Stormwater and Parks update. Erin's filling in for our city engineer, Chris Wheaton, today because she is out of the country.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna do my best to get through this. I'm aware of most of it, but not all of it. So hopefully I can answer any questions you have or get you the answers. So I reviewed this project status overview shown here with the last presentation, and the only change was on the Atlantic Street garage deck and lighting. So that changed from May to June for the construction finish. And you can see that was due to material and weather delays, and that the top deck needs an extra epoxy due to some poor surface conditions. So that was the only thing that has changed here. Moving on to some of the detail. The city's combined sewer overflow separation projects, these are the ones I was talking about before that are under construction. We have the Clay Street Sewer Separation Contract 2, that's through Foschini Park out to the river. The box culvert and 48-inch pipe are being installed and progressing through Foschini Park. We are going through the period right now where we need shutdown of Camden Street. So we're expecting 3 weeks of that shutdown. There is police and detour, so they everyone can access the park through Salem. I know it's not ideal. We are hopeful to finish that before the 3 weeks that we have outlined. For the sewer separation contract 3, the 48-inch is continuing to be installed on Railroad Avenue. We did get some curb and sidewalk installed on Clay Street between Park and Railroad. It's really starting to clean up. That area is worse for wear, and we're aware of that. So I was happy to see some of that work. You will notice there are some gaps in some of that sidewalk and curbing, and that's due to Veolia lead and brass service replacement that has to occur. So if you notice that, that's the reason. So we're gonna continue to clean up that area on Clay Street, and then the jack and bore under the rail is scheduled to begin at the end of May. And then that should, I'm saying for about a month, I think that that's a safe assumption, and then we will be done with that project pretty much once we get through the rail. Non-TSO projects for Voorhees Lane, the biggest update is just that everything's ongoing, still resuming as previously discussed. The contractor coordinated with PSE&G, so did the city, and they anticipate the work resuming in a few weeks here. So in, I'd say the next 2 weeks. City's construction status parks, this is the reason I'm still in my work boots. Stag Park, the contractor, has advised us at the time of, to be honest, at the time of the preparation of this presentation, it's changed. What I know as of now, this week, the engineered wood fiber will be placed in that one playground area, and the turf will be placed. The rubber surfacing will be placed next week, early next week. That starts liquidated damages. So we've been working very closely with Steve's office on this. They've been advised May 1st, we'll start our count for, I think it's $1,425 a day on liquidated damages that will start being assessed as part of this project. What I will say is there's not much left. I really hope that we get it to a safe condition soon so we can open it back up. Moving on to Carver Park. Carver Park, I expect the Green Acres approval. I was kind of hoping to get it today, so I could tell you we got it. I am expecting it this week. That's our last item that's outstanding. Ground GPR, ground penetrating radar occurred, just to make sure there's no leftover oil tanks from what was there before the park. Once we have that, that will be going out to bid. Those dates are being preliminary coordinated with Monica for next week. Johnson Park, the sports facility phase 1, that design is ongoing. The site preparation contract is also being coordinated with Monica. That will be bid next week. So you'll see that going out to bid. That's going to be very similar to what you've seen in a lot of development throughout the city on the river, where large piles of earth preparing the subbase for an improvement like this. Foschini Park, the design for phase 1 is underway, and the DEP submission, you will be seeing that check request this week for the DEP permit submission. City's paving projects, again, not too much change from the last update I noticed. I did want to say that the notice to proceed was issued for Summit Avenue, and that's from Passaic to Spring Valley. And the work's expected to be completed by the end of May. And then ongoing work, as was previously discussed by Chris, for the city's resurfacing program for 2022 is commencing. To the next. Some other projects to note, Atlantic Street Garage, there's the new entrance from Atlantic Street has begun, so you'll notice that. To speak about the Main Street streetscape from Sussex to Atlantic, construction is substantially complete. Site furnishings are anticipated to be delivered the week of May 1st, so that's next week. Some other items to note, the City Hall offices, the renovation of the John Earl building, which is just adjacent to us now. The offices will be for building, zoning, and property management departments. There was a follow-up meeting held, and 90% plans are expected by the end of the month. I know I saw some coordination on the specifications for that as well. And then, lastly, probably something we all noticed today driving around the city, NJ Transit rail crossing improvements at Passaic Street have commenced. And I know there's been notices sent out for the duration of those closures. Right now, they're working at Essex, and they're expecting the Passaic at Railroad to close on or about 5/3, so next week. And then lastly, the East Anderson and Cedar Lane Bridge. I have a website here if you'd like some more information, but an additional community stakeholder meeting was held on April 17th. This project is in preliminary engineering. They're saying that completion of construction will be 5 to 6 years out. So a pretty long lead item there. And I believe that's it. Okay.
Aaron, are you aware if that bridge is gonna be totally closed for that?
I don't believe so, but I do not know.
I was at the meeting there.
Yeah.
I think the design plans are to build the bridge next to it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Be excellent, okay, that's good. My other question was lights on the new streetscape on Main Street. Any idea? I know PSE&G has them, so I'm just wondering what the holdup is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Honestly, it's internal with PSE&G. We've dealt with that on many projects with them, so it just kind of takes continuous follow-up with them.
And the other thing is that, you know, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is Carver Park.
Sure.
We're getting, I don't know whether you saw the petition that went out, it's close to 800 signatures now of citizens in that area. They're like not happy with the length of time this has taken from beginning to end. So we need to, I'd like to probably get a meeting with, see what we have to do, because of this, I think we're gonna have to change some of the plans and the way we're doing things so that we don't shut down 3 courts all at one time for an extended period. And especially if we get a contractor like we have at Stott Park where they, you know, so, and we're held to that low bid process, so that happens. We understand that, but that can't happen here, so we have to change gears a little bit, come up with a plan. We gotta expedite this program, because I'm expecting either this meeting or meetings in the near future to be, you know, hundreds of people coming here complaining about Carver Park, and that's, you know, we don't wanna see that. So let's have a city manager, let's get a meeting with Suburban and come up with a new game plan for this. This isn't gonna work at the rate it's going.
Sure.
We may have to do some things in parallel. I think that we can work together and come up with a plan that makes more sense.
Sure. I mean, we have 3 courts to work with there, so.
We have to make it happen for the summer. We can't have another summer where, you know, we're seeing such issues.
Yeah, makes sense.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Aaron, before you go. I still am getting some complaints on Park Street. What's going on? Is that where they're just staging and pounding?
Yeah, there's a lot of,
Any time frame of when this is gonna be over?
so we're really hopeful. That work, I'll tell you, is being held up because of brass service replacement. So we're working with Veolia. They've been a partner with the city. They've been doing main relocation. Off those mains, they have lead and brass services. I think everybody's heard about the push, and then they have to convert these services. So that's the schedule we're waiting for right now, to get all that material off Park Street, so then we can finish pave Park Street. You know,
All the pounding and stuff, that's what they're complaining about, that I guess they're taking a little of the soil and pounding it into some lot there on Park Street.
Sure, I can look at that. That's not part of, yeah.
See if you can figure out what's going on, because they're saying that the noise is unbelievable.
So it's more of a noise. Okay, I'll look into
Yeah,
that.
really, I know, other than the inconvenience,
Right.
that this constant pounding of dirt, they're saying that the houses are shaking, it's really.
From that large stockpile in the park.
Yeah,
Okay.
very, very disturbing, so let's see if we can at least get some kind of answer or some kind of way that we can at least present to folks there when they call, that this is near completion, not near completion, you know.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's near completion, that's for sure, but I'll look into the noise.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Aaron, real quick, sorry, are the utilities hooked up at side yet? Everything's.
No, that's ongoing, so PSE&G's inspection for the electrical, there's also electrical runs that need to occur to all the lighting, to the pavilion areas, and then there was plumbing work interior for the sinks that needed to be buttoned up as well. So no, there's items like that. There's a lot of punch list items, I'll say, I think we'll need to continue through there. I'm hoping the surfacing and being able to open most of the park will happen soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
That's all I have there.
Okay, need a motion to open the public?
Offer.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Anybody from the public who'd like to speak, please come forward, give your name to the clerk, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Marty Smith, Prospect Avenue. Several months ago, we asked how many of our patrol cars are equipped with protective shields. Mr. Caruso said he thought some of them, didn't know exactly how many, but that he would further make checks on that. Do we have any upgraded information on that yet?
They do not carry shields in the cars. We have to work on getting,
Is there any reason why they don't?
just that they haven't been purchased.
Well, does the city council have any plan in place to make sure that this type of device is carried so that our police officers have protection in the event they have to reply to a violent situation?
Go ahead.
I'll have that conversation with the director regarding seeing if we get some funding for that.
It will come through management, the police department, then back to us to make the decision.
Okay. And also, we were talking about county's reply to Mr. Caruso concerning speed limits on county roads within the city of Hackensack. And their reply to him was, as he said, that county believes that those speed limits are appropriate for county roads. With that type of statement from them, I'm of the personal belief that they probably think that planet Earth is still flat. But I have to tell you that we have county roads in Hackensack with 35-mile-an-hour speed limits on streets that contain houses of worship. And streets that contain houses of worship should not have 35-mile-an-hour speed limits. They should have the same speed limit as we have on streets that have school zones, 25 miles an hour. Now, I don't know if we have exhausted our attempts to work through Bergen County traffic because we don't seem to be on the same page. And I'm wondering if it's time for the council to approach the county executive directly and discuss this issue with him.
Excellent. Mr. Smith, this past week, I had a meeting with Nagley Engineering, myself, and went over specifically other locations, but pedestrian safety initiatives that we can start working on. And the biggest one and the most prevalent one would be Paul Fly Road. Again, there was a traffic study done several years ago. They're going to re-explore trying to do another one now with some different ideas, if you will. But as far as the speed limit goes, I can tell you that the last report that they did, the average speed on Paul Fly Road during different times of day was 38 miles an hour. That's what I was told in that report. So yes, it's over 35, but it's not significant enough that the county is going to turn around and lower the speed limit.
Well, as you know, we've mentioned over the last couple of years, Polyfly Road is a particularly dangerous road because of the width of the street, the lack of crosswalks on Polyfly Road except for Lodi Street, the speed limit, it's a bus route, and other factors. So Polyfly Road really needs a major upgrade to make it safer, including a center median, pedestrian signs, pedestrian activated lights, and so on.
And that was the major part of the discussion I had with them, that how dangerous Polyfly is, the fact that we've had some fatals there, and the fact that there's only one legitimate crossing there, and there needs to be more, because it's too far spread apart. So we're going to be fighting with the county on that, but we did start the process. I'm waiting for a proposal from Nagley to do that, who's our traffic engineer.
Thank you.
public? Seeing none, motion to close to the public?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Okay, Steve?
Yes, just before we close, we did have a closed executive session. As usual, I do denote which cases were discussed. So at the closed session, we did discuss the Luna Diaz litigation and 2 workers' compensation matters, Hanrahan and Joseph. That was the extent of the litigation discussed in closed session.
All right, thank you. Motion to close the executive session?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg. Deputy Mayor Canestrino.
Aye.
Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Motion to close the council hall?
Offer.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Von Rudenberg. Deputy Mayor Canestrino. Councilmember Pataglia.
Aye.
Councilmember Carroll.
Aye.
Mayor LaBrus.
Aye. Okay, we're gonna start the new meeting in 5 minutes. Okay.